We are live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Pitiful Little Band live stream, combining Tarkin's Top Shelf and Idiot's Array into one monster episode. Although it looks like we may be down Alan today, he was not feeling well. So today, unless Alan surprises us, we have Ryder Waldron from Idiot's Array and Becca Benjamin from Tarkin's Top Shelf. So, how are you?
Doing good. Happy to be back with you too. Yeah, we're less monstrous without Alan here, but that's fine. We can carry this show.
Ouch. Becca, how are you doing?
That was very ouch. I am happy to be here. I'm happy to do this with all of you, obviously, because the more the merrier. And I just enjoy my brothers of Star Wars. So yeah, I'm excited. We've got so much to talk about. So much.
I'm excited too.
You are our Omega, and Mark and I are like the clone brethren.
I love it.
Yeah.
So which one of you's Wrecker?
Neither of us.
Well, I don't think either of us have that kind of strength.
I think that Ryder is probably more of a tech, and I'm more of an Echo. I think Alan is more the hunter type. I think.
Okay,
fair.
That's
fair.
No. I'm in that. I think Ryder is Crosshair. He just hasn't betrayed us yet.
That would probably be more fair, and my sights are getting zeroed in on one of you.
Ooh.
That's scary.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. This is my first time with my new streaming podcast setup. I was doing all this research into webcams and stuff for the office because I don't know, I was in a corner before and it looked fine with my MacBook camera, but it just didn't look well. And then I remembered that an iPhone can be your MacBook camera. And so all I had to do was buy a $2 screw that would, I have mic stands around the house from my gigging days. So a screw that attaches to the mic stand that it has a camera tripod mount on the other side. And I was just able to put my phone mount there. So hello everyone on the internet.
It looks great, Mark.
You've got a much better setup.
Live. Yeah, no, it looks fantastic. I love all the books. Obviously, I like, you bringing in the Death Star. It's great.
Tarkin we got
very
Star
happy.
Wars, the Skywalker saga.
Nice.
Yeah, I will admit the only chronological order is back here. The High Republic is the only thing that's currently definitely in the right order. So anybody
it's
who's
hard
looking at
to
books,
keep them in order.
Well,
all the books.
I had to move them off the bookshelves into the den, and then move the bookshelves, and then move all the books back in. And we kept them in decent order. But we're not here to talk about my shelves, although if you want to compliment them, you can. We're here to talk about, first the Bad Batch, and then the Mandalorian.
But wait.
Yes,
there's some
Becca,
news, and I just knew Mark would really want to talk about the news. Sorry, Mark. You always want to talk about the news, especially when the Filone is involved.
Oh, for sure. Yes. So enlighten us, Becca, and we will talk about it.
Well, I put this in here specifically for Mark. Sorry, Ryder. But he is my other half in a sense. So a couple days, I think it was only 2 days ago, there is a nice article that has Filoni recalling shadowing Rian Johnson during the filming of The Last Jedi. So, I guess he actually was on set, Dave, for Rogue One, for The Force Awakens. He got to talk with Gareth Edwards and JJ, but Ryan was the only director that really put the camera right in his face and let him have some real time, seeing what it was like to be a live action director. This doesn't surprise me because Mark, because we have both spoke with Anne, and she loves The Last Jedi. She loves Rian Johnson. She thinks that is for her and her personal little box of fandom, that is her favorite of the new Star Wars films is The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that Dave, was telling this story and that he has this friendship now with Ryan, because it ends in the article that him and Ryan are still in contact as of today. So thoughts?
That would be a fun friend group to be part of. I mean, just between, the Mandalorian, the Bad Batch, Rian Johnson's show that he's producing, Poker Face, like just all the projects that are in the air, I would just be like constantly building them up. Like, good job, you're doing great work, and not bothering them with thousands of questions about Star Wars, because that would be rude. But I'm glad that that creative people who have made Star Wars, like Rian Johnson and Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, of course, that they're friends and they are, always in contact and stuff, because, I think depending on the life situation that you're in, there are certain people that can relate to you and most people that can't. So it's nice to have people that know what it's like to be hated for making something wonderful. So
that's fair.
Yeah. So that's what I would say about that.
Yeah. What I thought was, so here's Dave Filoni. He has worked on so much Star Wars. He knows more Star Wars than probably just about anybody right now. That may be fair to say. And
except
here
maybe
he
Pablo.
is. Except maybe Pablo. Okay. Any of the actual makers of the animation or live action stuff, he probably just knows more than most. And here he is still trying to learn from somebody else how to make live action stuff. He is not arrogant enough, he's not so arrogant that he would be like, nah, I know all that. I got this. Look at all these Star Wars series I'm making. No, he's down there trying to learn from Rian Johnson and trying to learn from J.J. Abrams and Gareth Edwards. And it's like, okay, that's really, I just thought that was really cool. The humility that it takes to actually go do something like that. It's really cool. And you hear him say that when he's talking about working on The Mandalorian and working with Jon Favreau, like they learn from each other. And it's nice to have people that are humble enough and just not too cocky to think that they have nothing to learn from anyone else. So that's what I got from the article.
Yeah. I enjoy stuff like this because at the end of the day, again, this all goes back to that photo that Mark and I spent like a good 10 minutes talking about. The nice one in the Empire magazine, which really is a different side of Filoni that we've seen before. We're used to seeing that humble fan guy, he's like one of us. And to this day, I think that's probably my favorite take back with Dave, is that he is just one of us, just on set, like, oh no, this looks great. Like just totally geeking out. He really is just ordinary with a great job. Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
well,
and there's a certain level of creativity that they have, but a lot of it is being willing to learn and being humble about it. And I was listening to the Roundtable interviews that a lot of the podcasts did with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau and Katie Sackhoff and Rick Famuyiwa. And it is interesting how much they've bounced off each other because, Jon Favreau goes back to the Clone Wars and the creation of the Darksaber. So one story he told was when he originally recorded his dialogue for Paz Vizsla, it was just a vibroblade. And then George Lucas came up with like this backstory for the Darksaber and the, all this stuff about Beskar armor, blah, 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 and called him back in just to record new lines for the show. And it was almost like an off the cuff thing. And now here we are. Like the Darksaber is this insanely important artifact now through Rebels and the Mandalorian. So it is interesting. Like Dave Filoni is probably the closest to George Lucas that we have currently in the franchise because he learned everything directly from him. Like the Clone Wars, it's funny to think about it. Like George Lucas, his whole plan with that was like, well, I'll come up with this idea and then I'll pass it off. And then he ended up being so involved, so thank the maker, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you can't forget George. I mean, which is interesting. You bring up those interviews. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I want to get to the main stuff. But writer's favorite, Katie Sackhoff, she actually said that, in her opinion, as of right now, where we stand in Star Wars, Dave knows more than George. And I was like so excited to hear her say that. My eyebrows went up. I said, really, to myself. So, and to be honest with you, I think she's right. I mean, he's worked on more Star Wars stuff, right? And had input on it than George has, if you think about it.
Yeah. And he's been doing different branches of Star Wars with Ahsoka, The Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, the animation stuff. I mean, there is so many splinters off of the original trilogy that he has worked on. So yeah, I would say that's probably true.
Yeah, that was great. Yes. So Mark, you had a say on this. I'm really not paying no mind to it until they put it in some sort of canon form, whether it be the official Star Wars site. But I guess there's a debacle that John created in those interviews about the time span between.
Actually, the first question out of the gate in this roundtable, the way he phrased it made it sound like 2 years passed with Grogu with Luke. Other interviews, he made it more clear that it was 2 years, like for us as viewers. But I can see why people thought. Why people thought that. And
my impression watching that, though, you could see Dave's face as John is speaking. He's just like, "Oh, I gotta take this guy backstage and have a talking to." You can see it on his face.
Later comments from other interview sources, he's talking about 2 years out of universe. So, okay, so there's that. But also, for me, they're fictional characters. So if we want to say that 10 years have passed, okay, that's what happened.
Yeah.
I don't know. People get bent out of shape over the funniest thing. But yeah, it's clear that some time had to have passed. I don't think he actually meant 2 years in universe, but it's at least 6 months to a year. But we'll see. I think it's a whole lot of nothing.
I think they are making a whole lot of something out of nothing. I agree with that.
I think he kind of misspoke. And he meant 2 years out of universe, and people are taking it to mean 2 years in universe. So
okay.
But again, if that's what it ends up being for real, like, okay.
Right. Then that's what it is. All right. You guys want to tackle some Bad Batch?
Absolutely.
All right.
Betcha.
All right. So where are we? This is Metamorphosis, episode 11, season 2. I titled this the Aliens Meets Godzilla episode. All right, guys. The Zilla Beast is back. Thoughts on this?
I was shocked.
Yeah, I was too. And so my son, this is Wednesday night. My son, I had watched the Mandalorian. I hadn't watched the Bad Batch yet. And my son texted me, 17, said, "Watch the Bad Batch right now." And it's like 10:30 at night. I'm like, okay, I will. I was planning on watching it tomorrow, but I will. And a few days before that, we had been talking about the Clone Wars, and we were talking about his favorite episode. He loves the Clone Wars, watches them all the time. And he said, one thing I don't get is they never wrapped up what happened to that Zillo Beast. We see Palpatine take that, and it was like, oh my gosh, this episode came out, and it was like, he said, yeah, this adds a lot of clarity to the Clone Wars. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. So I said before we started recording that I'd seen some reviews and people didn't like this episode, and I was totally the opposite because I love this episode. Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I would agree. So, I mean, for me, as a fan of late 70s sci-fi, I was just in the mindset of like, this ship looks like the Nostromo. This reminds me a lot of Alien, like the death around every corner, and even the design of the creature, it was very alien-like. And I'm like, how are kids going to react to this? But they don't have the emotional baggage of watching the chest burster scene from Alien. But what I did think was interesting is this episode sort of took the starting point of that already happened. Like, the disaster already happened, crew's dead, and this is what happens next. So yeah, for me, it was very intense. And then to find out, like, I should have picked up on it when the thing was eating electricity, but it wasn't until it sort of started to grow up that I was like, oh, so we're bringing this back.
Yeah. I love the creep factor. I mean, it doesn't even give you a chance. It just goes for it right in the beginning, and it's really, really just creepy. And this is animation, and I think you lose that after a while. You think it's live action. I mean, let's just be honest. The whole art, the whole animation art has just grown in such a way that you really do forget you're watching animation, and just the acting just blows your mind. And I love this. We're getting a lot more of Tech and Omega teaming up. I don't know if anyone's noticed this, a lot of it. And they both react and respond to physical and emotional things so different, right? And we're really seeing how Tech is kind of really has a delay in responding lately. And if it wasn't for her being with him, I don't think he would have made it out. I mean, she really had to call him back into the moment, more than once, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And this is, again, something that really brings me back to season 1 with her, is that no matter what it is they are tutoring her in, it could be schematics, it could be just basic knowledge on ships and planet and all that stuff. She is, I'd love to just echo back to the Phantom Menace when, Anakin steps aboard Queen Amidala's ship and he's like, and this is this and this and that. And he goes, you catch on quick. There's Omega. Just like, the knowledge that she can absorb and utilize just blows my mind at the age that she's at. So I'm not surprised that we're getting all these things with the Zillo Beast and then her as well. And the Empire wants it all. And makes you sit there and go, what is Palpatine up to? Besides what we already know, is that we know he's up to the whole cloning thing, trying to anyway, because he wants to preserve his life essence in something or in some shape or form. So it's just really creepy, and there's just so much going on. And it's almost like you're trying to figure out what is more important right now to the Empire, So it's, I don't know, just a lot to track down with what's going on. And Nala Say, she's in a pickle.
Yeah. Well, and like you put in the notes, Omega can't be discovered by the Empire. Like, that's something that's very important. And it does make you wonder why. What is special about Omega?
Because she's the same as Boba. Boba's out running about. No one seems to be dropping things to go find him. Right? Or is she not the same as Boba? And is that something that Nala Say knows about? Because it's something that they might have added? Or did it develop organically?
Or both.
Or both. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Both. Why not both?
Why not both? Yeah, I mean, if you compared her and Boba, you can see a different trajectory with them at that age, because I mean, she's very empathetic. She's very scared. Her fight or flight response is on point, and you can see that in this, like, Tex going off of this ship, and he said, "Yeah, I'll be fine." Basically said, "I'll be fine by myself." Like, you're nuts, dude. Like, listen to this kid, because they're sometimes more in tune. They don't have all the clutter in their brains that some of us adults have. And also her being a girl, maybe, I mean, sometimes, let's just be honest, women are smarter than dudes. So, that may be something that maybe the Empire is like, yeah, we got a bunch of old white guys running this show. Maybe we bring in Omega to make things a little better. I don't know. But, that's where I went.
I love it.
Well, I mean, just lifespan averages.
That's a good point too. I mean, they're healthier livers. Not a healthier liver. Well, maybe they have healthy livers too, but they live healthier lives. You're right.
Well, and less common to have their last words be, "Hey, watch this."
Again, though, we've talked about this. She kind of is their moral compass too, right?
Yep.
I mean, honestly, where would they be right now with everything going on if they didn't have her? Would they still be out there, or would they be picked off already?
Yeah, she pulled things out of them emotionally and intellectually that they wouldn't have had to use if not for her. I mean, Hunter's got to be a caring father to her almost. He's not going to do that for Tech or Wrecker or whatever. It's Omega. They can take care of themselves. Omega needs to be watched over a little bit more.
Yeah, and she has, just because of her values, her personal values, they have stretched as people and become more empathetic to others, and they're trying to do more to help people, and without her they probably just end up going in hiding forever.
Yeah
because that's
would
the
they
smart
go
play.
in hiding? I don't know.
I think so.
They may, because they want to make, well, at least Hunter, he wants to make he wants her to have a life of some kind. So he's out there fighting to maybe make this galaxy better. And if not for her, maybe they just go hunker down somewhere and live out their short lives and, try not to get in any trouble, and maybe try to find some happiness for their remaining few years, however long that may be.
Yeah.
Time will tell, but I'm telling you, it's going to get really like dark right now.
Yeah.
You know, especially if that box is open where she is discovered, and it's not just her, but it's what she is or who she could be. That's a scary thing. We don't know, because there was a reason Nalase told her to go with the Bad Batch. There was a reason she didn't want, and she specifically said didn't want the Empire to know of her. Nalase knows what that reason is. We don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
There's more to it, and we have yet to learn all of it. So, okay, no one better harm one little hair on her head. I'm telling you.
Then one final like design thing. If I ever get the opportunity to ask, I want to know if the design for this drifting ship that they encounter the Zillo Beast on.
Oh, yeah.
It really reminds me of the Narcissus, the secondary ship that drops off the Nostromo. So like at the end of Alien, that's the one that Ripley escapes on. So just the design of the ship that they found reminds me of that ship. Not like the big boxy thing, but the more spearhead shaped. So anyway, I'm curious about that.
You know, you're probably onto something, because they do the callbacks. I mean, you know that the Zillo Beast was designed kind of after Godzilla, the whole climbing up the highest tower, the whole bit. You know what I mean? It's got that feel to it, the whole monster.
But then the younger version is more of an alien like design. You know,
yes.
No eyes, the smooth head, the teeth.
And one last thing, you know, it's kind of scary how, you know, when the actual troopers come and they collect all the people from that planet that saw the Zillo Beast, they're collecting them all on the ship. Yeah, they can't have any witnesses to it now, can they? You know what's going on there.
Weird. That's creepy.
It was very disturbing to see that. And just got to say, I mean, how many of those, because they're still using clones, how many of them are going to turn away after doing this?
It's true.
Someone's got a sense like this isn't right. I mean, it only took Finn, who's not even a clone trooper, just a stormtrooper, you know, a first order trooper, to go on one mission to say, same for me. So, you know, we'll see. But all right. So Mandalorian, chapter 17, season 3, episode 1, The Apostate. Initial reactions, guys.
I thought it was very good. I thought it felt like a bunch of little episodes put together, because they're setting there was like a lot of different setup, just a lot of, you know, we've got IG-11, we've got the Ancellans, we've got you know, going back to see Bo-Katan, we've got the helmet ritual at the start. There was just a lot, and the pirates were great. I mean, it was almost like campy. I mean, the one pirate, sorry, I'm jumping way ahead, but said "Avast." I mean, I
loved it. I loved it.
And it was just like, oh my gosh, that's hilarious. They throw that in there. But anyway, I thought it was a really good episode, and a lot to pick from. Not a lot of depth yet, but a lot to pick from right now.
Yeah, for me, it felt like it was good, but it felt a little scattered. And I think what we're seeing here is, rather than introduce characters and storylines like one episode at a time and then bringing it all together in the end, it's like they're getting all the plates spinning right out the gate. And here are all the plot lines we're going to try. Well, I trust that they will, but here's all the plot lines that we will resolve by the end of the season. And so there are a lot of things happening. I thought it was a great fake out at the beginning, that you think that the covert and the ceremony with the helmet, like you think it's going to be Din Djarin. And then that crocodile monster was just perfect. The design, the behavior, like the crocodile death spin that it did, like, and then when it got exploded, its guts went everywhere.
It was Twizzlers for everybody. That's all I thought of.
Twizzlers. And so it's hard to say, because it's one of those episodes that, because of the structure of it and because it has so many things, it's going to be hard to say, you know, like I can't give it a letter grade like Coffee with Kenobi does right now, because it's something that, as the season goes on and you see the pieces come together with all these spinning plates, I think it'll be great. And also, you know, as a longtime Millennium Falcon fan, a longtime fan of the X-Wing, it's hard to admit, but I think that Din Djarin's N1 Starfighter is my favorite starship of all Star
Trek, really cool.
Or Star Wars. I said Star Trek.
Oh, wow. Of all time. Okay.
Yeah, no.
It is really cool. It's hard to argue with that. Yeah.
When it made its appearance in that scene. Oh my goodness, I was so happy.
It is really cool.
It's so cool. I love it.
It is.
Like
it is.
And
it's awesome.
you know, all the yellow paint stripped off. It's just stainless steel. It's like they sanded an old hot rod and then just put a clear coat on it so it wouldn't rust, because you got to do that. So I love it. I love it so much.
I love that ship. Well, then again, anything from Padme's world is just like A-okay for me. Plus, you know, Anakin loved it. He thought it was a great ship. He did some neat tricks in there, which Din is doing similar tricks, which we get to see in this episode.
It's so wizard.
It is wizard. Absolutely. Nice choice there. But yeah, for me, again, 35 minutes, I think, was the runtime on this, if I'm not mistaken. We're very close to it.
Yeah.
It was an awful lot of setup for 35 minutes. I would have liked to have a little bit longer or possibly split these things up, but because there's just so much going on, trying to keep track of what's happening. I love the buildup of lore, which is something that I think we need with The Mandalorian. There was a lot of EU. And Jay Krebs, if she was here, she could name it all. She has been a Mandalorian fan for years. And I never really followed it until we got a lot of it with Sabine Wren in Rebels, which I loved that because we've heard Jedi, you know, forever. So to get something different is wonderful. And I love the initiation ceremony setup, you know, how that's going and how that turned out and, you know, what that would look like, because we don't know how they do it and what age that they mask you, helmet you, you know, we didn't know, which I have to say, they probably go through quite a few helmets because, you know, that kid's head's going to grow. Just saying. You know, just saying. And that's a lot of work for one armorer to go through, isn't it? You know, for a whole bunch.
Yeah. And do you get to pick your own helmet color? Do you get to pick? I would guess so. I don't know. Do you?
I think.
I don't know.
Whatever represents you, because it's very personal. I think Mandalorian armor is a very personal thing. I mean, Sabine Wren made it seem so. That said, I love that setup. I love the Twizzlers flying in the air. To me, that was just great because it wasn't gory. It was, you know, there was that humor, like you said, campy aspect to it.
Yeah.
I think on my third watch, because I did watch this 3 times, it dawned on me that point where Din goes in and talks to the armor and she has her back to him and she's like, you know, you're a Mandalorian no more. You renounced, blah, 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 whatever. And they're going through this whole thing and he brings proof that Mandalore still exists. It's still okay. Can't be poisoned if someone could bring back something from there, which is a crystallized piece of the planet now. And I love, it took me a moment, you know, Grogu's looking all cute, but if you really watch him really focus, he's like the moderator of that meeting, making sure Daddy gets a fair shake and making sure that the armorer doesn't go back on her word. That this is what he needs to do. He's going to go do it when he comes back with proof. He's back in. And it made me realize that, you know, because there's a lot of questioning going on, like online about, you know, is Grogu a nexus in between Jedi lore, Mandalorian lore? You know, what does this mean? Because when he uses the Force, it's very selfish. You know, he does it for his own, you know, for selfish reasons, you know, with moving the chair around, taking the candy, things of that nature, that most Jedi just don't do, right? So there's a lot of questions there, but it made me realize when I went back the third viewing, watching that moment in the beginning there, that in my opinion, and I could be wrong, Grogu choosing Din right now, when Luke told him, you know, a short time for someone else, you know what I mean, is, you know, a short time for you could be a lifetime. A short time for you is a lifetime for somebody else.
Right.
Which to me, he didn't really decide against being a Jedi. I think at the moment he's like, well, okay, right now I got to put this on the back burner. I'm not what's important right now. My daddy is. He needs to do what he needs to do, and I need to help him get there. So I think that's what he chose, is that he chose to be selfless and help Din right now do what he needs to do to make himself feel better to become this Mandalorian. And I think that's what he's doing. He's going to help him, which is a very Jedi thing to do if you think about it.
Yes, Jedi are there in the galaxy to serve the galaxy and to serve the citizens. And what better way than to maybe restore Mandalore and help? And Din Djarin, I mean, we talked about the Bad Batch. Would they have done what they did without Omega there? Din Djarin wasn't going to be doing what he's doing without Grogu You know, he'd just be a bounty hunter still. And now he's got the dark saber, and you know, the dark saber came from a Mandalorian Jedi. I mean, and what better way to fuse those two than someone raised as a Mandalorian like Grogu, who has the powers of a Jedi. And so I agree with you. The lore is that's what I love about Star Wars the most, is the lore. It's not just the action and stuff like that. It's the lore. I want to learn more about that. And Mandalorian lore is really interesting at this point. And we got to see a Mandalorian castle with Bo-Katan, and she's cranky right now. And it's the castle that Satine Kryze was living in, apparently, and on the planet. And it's like, okay, this is so cool to tie all this together. And going back to Dave Filoni, you know, he's gonna pull stuff from the Clone Wars and stuff like that to put in this live action. And I love seeing animated stuff in live action. I just think that is so cool. Where it started animated and went to live action. Really cool.
I agree.
Yeah, and there is I don't know, I don't see it in the notes, so maybe I just didn't read thoroughly enough, but the hyperspace scene, Purrgil.
Yes,
the whales.
Oh my goodness.
The Purrgils,
yes.
And we also get a sighting of a convor sitting on top of IG. So
that's right.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Well, okay.
So beautiful.
Anyway, I loved that scene, and my kids have seen Rebels, so they're familiar with the So they were like, "What?" I was cheering. It was so good.
That was great.
But yes, talking about IG-11. So I feel bad for him. We had a moment though in there. It kind of reminded me of something that was almost a mix between the Terminator and Aliens. Okay,
yes.
Because in Terminator there is a scene in Terminator 2 where like he seems to be damaged beyond repair, and he's like reaching out, and he gets stabbed by the T-1000. But then also in Aliens, and I don't want to say this is a callback yet, because it's oddly specific, but in Aliens, Bishop gets ripped in half by the alien queen. Okay. And now everybody who's seen Alien knows you don't trust androids because they're programmed. They're going to do what the corporation wants. You cannot trust them. And even Aliens, it sort of like conditions you to continue feeling a bad way about androids. But then Bishop, after getting ripped in half by the alien queen, like he comes in clutch and grabs her and holds her in place until she gets knocked out the airlock with just 2 arms and no legs, right? And so I know that at this moment, IG-11 is a major threat in the state he's in to Grogu. But he's going to be back, and he's going to be like the Bishop droid. Like he's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And when the protocol droid pushed Grief Karga's bust on him. Now that's using your head.
Yeah.
Charlie Ashby. So you guys know him online.
That's using your head.
He's like, I made a music change, or I made a change to the scene to make it better. And all he did was put the James Bond guitar stab at the end that they always do when he tells a really good joke. And so, yeah, I do feel bad for droids just generally because, if you look at C-3PO, he's a ball of emotions and anxieties and fears and worries. And, R2-D2 is definitely, he's got a personality. And so there's attitude. Yes. There's an almost living quality to them, but not quite. So sometimes you can kind of go on the edge with this kind of humor. So I do feel bad for him not having autonomy over himself right now. But I hope that in the end, it works out okay.
Yeah, my inner L3 was screaming. She would have not liked this at all. Not to mention the whole little droids carrying Grief's cape. Yet no.
Basically, they're Roombas for capes.
Okay, but is it necessary? Those poor little guys. But anyway, my L3 would have been like, But we have to go back to season 1 of The Mandalorian to understand that full scope is Din didn't like droids, period. No.
Yeah.
And that's why he kept saying, I trust this one. I trust this one.
He referred to IG-11 as his friend. This one is my friend. Like that's a big
huge
step.
Growth for him.
Yeah.
Still not liking the teardown of a statue that was
of a beautiful statue.
Yeah.
Well, they can replace that with metal cast.
Yeah, it was a little,
They could melt down.
Well, because if you think about it, it's kind of weird
that.
like if they used somebody's actual bones to be their statue.
That is creepy.
You know?
Yeah,
so
that's very creepy. I almost said a bad word, but that's really creepy. That's
Yeah.
really but yeah, so the Anzillans, am I saying that right? I mean, a little,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my god, no squeezy, bad baby.
Bad baby. We were crying laughing. That was
that's a good one. That was a good one.
I mean, he literally has no boundaries still. Grogu, after all this time, still no boundaries.
Yeah. He
feels it in his right down in his little bones, and he's just got to act. And I don't know if that's good or bad for him right now, especially with, I go back to that moment, and I skipped over something I really wanted to talk about, but this will segue to it. But I go back to that moment in season 1, I think it was season 1, where he thought Cara Dune was really hurting Din, so he just went right for the Force choke.
Oh, yeah.
So, because he had this feeling, he just acted. I don't know if that's good. It's something to really think about, because, I mean, it was harmless, I know. But again, just that how he gets so excited, so emotional, and he just reaches out and grabs. But let's be honest, how many of us sitting at home are like, I do that.
Yeah, I would do that. Cute little droid smiths. And
they're adorable.
I just have to say that Grief Karga, like Din Djarin can't understand Anzellan, but then they start speaking in basic.
Right. And he's
Grief
like,
Karga
I got that.
Like, I'll translate for you. And it's like, how many times have you been in a situation with somebody like that where like they're telling you what the person's saying? It's like, no, really, I understand what they're saying. Like, stop.
It was great. No, it was really.
Well, he is the high magistrate. I like when he had to keep correcting people on that one. I don't know. That was.
It reminded me of when we get that introduction in the book. I forget which one it is. I think it's Thrawn Alliances, where we get Thrawn and Anakin meeting for the first time, and Thrawn keeps pronouncing his name, and then Anakin says, he goes, no, and then he pronounces it again. It's very similar to like that, really trying to send it home. But we do find out, mystery solved, what happens to Cara Dune. How did you guys like how that was thrown in there?
I thought it was fine. I mean, I didn't expect to see her back in the series, but I also didn't want to hear a bunch of chatter online about these, loose ends they didn't tie up or something like that. Like, okay, we got one line, wraps it up, questions done. Like, move on, people.
Yeah, I think that they kind of had to address it.
Yeah.
But in a way that would anger the least amount of angry people, because let's be honest, if they said she died,
that wouldn't have probably went over well at all.
That would have not gone over well with her fans, we'll say. I'm very okay with her not being on the show anymore, and so just giving it one line to say what's up, I think that was fine. I'm just looking forward to seeing Carson Teva again, because I know that he was supposed to be on the spinoff show. So I'm still hoping that he gets something, because I don't know if you ever watched Kim's Convenience, but it was canceled unceremoniously. They were planning to do 6 seasons and they just got canceled, and he was Appa on that show, and he deserved more than that, because it's a great show, and he's a wonderful guy. And then he does live streams on Instagram. He'll just do a whole thing like, I'm going to open trading cards and see if we get all the variants today, and he is definitely one of us. So I can't wait to see him. But I think that the way that they sort of set up several things was interesting. And one thing I wanted to say though, like, so we're talking about like all these scattered things, because like that's kind of how this episode was. Did it feel like everything was happening like in sequence, like one after another, or did it feel like, okay, so he did this and then he traveled around and then now he's up on Navarro, and then some time passes and he goes here? Like, how did you guys feel about that? Did you feel like everything was actually happening in that compressed time, or is it just taking breaks between scenes like a few weeks?
I felt like it was happening in that sequence. That's how I felt about it. Maybe there was a little bit of time in between, but I felt like it was. I mean, I guess if they'd done a longer episode, they could have spaced that out a little bit better. But then it just would have been stuff we didn't need to see. So I got the feeling it was just in sequence how it was shown. I don't know.
I agree. There's definitely probably some time in between just to get to where you need to go, obviously. I would think that. I love the fact that we got Din training, in a sense, or teaching Grogu how to fly. I love that, because eventually we're going to see it. And I mean, well, otherwise, why else show it, right?
Yeah.
So I do think, though, the one thing on this entire 35 minutes that probably took me out, and I think it's just because it was too close to real world for me, and I was wondering where the sensitive writing was, and that was the pirates near the school, and then the whole shooting there. That took me out. I'm not going to lie. I do understand what they were getting at, that's where they're used to going. That was their watering hole, so to speak, where they would be, assigned basically assets, right, to go and attain, whether they would be brought in cold or brought in warm. Didn't matter. But now it's a school. And we had the whole shootout. Granted, Grief was very respectable. He only shot the hand, as a warning. Because he did. It was Din that took everybody else out. But I think he kind of had to, because I think he's a quicker draw from Grief, obviously. But I do have to say, the only thing that came out of that, other than the whole, scene with the asteroids and the other pirates that kind of tried to ambush him, but ended up really didn't working in their favor at all, was, as I keep saying, all hail King Kale. I mean, and that is Gorian Shard. King Salad.
Yeah.
King Kale,
King
however you want to
Salad.
call him. Yeah. I didn't expect that. Now, I have to ask, did we see this character before in animation even? Why am I feeling like I'm missing this? The Dranger would be very disappointed.
He reminded me of Swamp Thing a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember him from anything, but he was great. But it was like whoa, that's different for Star Wars, but it was cool. Yeah.
So Eric in chat said, I think Taika was on set and said he wanted to be in an episode. Well, I don't know. Like, if that were the case, I think they would have put a little less emphasis on the idea, like the Anzellans, of like, you got to hunt down this chip, because I think that's going to be resolved. I have a feeling we're going to see IG-11 fully formed again.
Yes.
And yeah, but as far as the design of the pirate, yeah, it kind of reminded me of Swamp Thing a little bit. Very cool. That and my kids were like, "Oh, that's kind of weird. That's kind of cool. It's kind of weird. Like, what? That's kind of weird, but it's kind of cool." Like, that was the whole dialogue there. But yeah, I hear what you're saying about the pirate thing, and I think sometimes you can really see their influences, as far as like what influenced the writing of the show. And I've watched so many Westerns in the last year, I can't pinpoint the exact one, but there are tons of examples of a gang of outlaws showing up at a place that they usually go, and it's something else now, and getting into it with a lawman. And that was, like, for me, that scene was just, oh, this is a Western shootout with the marshal that's finally got it under control.
Yeah.
And the shooting of the hand thing, like that's a big Western thing. Like, the good guy, the white hat, he's going to try not to kill the bad guys, but he'll do it if he needs to. And his deputy, he definitely doesn't care. And so, like, that was what I was saying. I am glad. One thing to sort of counterpoint that, I am glad that they didn't show the children in the school in their reaction. They kept it all outside the school.
Yep.
So I do really appreciate that, because to have children screaming and running away, that would have been too far for the real world implications of it. And Eric also said the Mandalorian needs more space battles. That asteroid chase was at least as good as Attack of the Clones.
It brought back those memories,
or Empire Strikes Back. Like,
yes.
Those were so well done, and this one is right up there with them.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of pulls from Attack of the Clones with the end of season 2 when they dropped the seismic charge, and then this chase. I mean, both from that scene from Attack of the Clones, really cool.
Oh yeah, no. Again, it brought back all those memories of that, and again, I just think there's something about that ship. It just really looks so cool, doing all these things, and I think it was a smart choice on their part for picking that. I mean, again, bringing back those prequel days is nice to see, because you love to see it. It's been so long since we got to see stuff like that. But that said, I do want to talk about, I know it's Ryder's favorite part. I mean, the throne of despair is what I call it. The throne of despair. Okay, I'm just going to say, and I'm really hoping that if she ever listens back, she doesn't get upset with me. But this is a compliment. All I saw sitting on that throne and that expression was Anne. And I know, I'm sorry, but that means it was fantastic acting, because that is who Bo-Katan is modeled after. I mean, we've heard Katie talk about it.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, like, she herself called out the fact that character, the way she was animated, was based off of Anne.
Yep.
So I can see what you're saying.
So I laughed like the whole time. I had to go back and rewind it and watch it seriously. But I mean, and if Mark, I know you watch them. You watch her Instagrams all the time, all her reels, and when she talks, it seriously felt like you were watching an Anne reel on Instagram. Oh, yeah. Well, what about this? And it's just, I mean, it was all there. It was beautifully done. But no, Bo-Katan, Throne of Despair, like you said, Ryder, it was her sister's castle. Everything. I mean, my son noticed that right away. 21 years old. He goes, "Oh my God, that's from the Clone Wars." He was freaking out, going nuts. And, and he's right. And it just looked so depressing now. And because he asks her, Din, where is everybody? And she's like, they all left. I don't have the saber. Why don't you go lead them? Go wield that thing around and they'll follow you anywhere. She's bitter. In a sense, you could say she's the third apostate in this episode, if I'm not mistaken. You got Grogu, you got Din, and you got her. Like I said, though, Din didn't choose this in a sense where it was an intentional renouncement. He showed his, who he loves, who he is, because he thought it was the last time he was going to see him. Grogu was the one who really literally walked away at the moment to help somebody. And Bo-Katan too, she didn't choose it. It happened to her. But she really calls him out on this, that it's just, what he believes in is just a cult. I don't know if we want to touch on that.
I think, so I will address that in a second. Eric said, didn't this episode of The Mandalorian look brighter? Honestly, I think that as we're getting out of the dark times of the Empire, that is reflected visually. Sure, they've got their problems, but we know there's stuff brewing in the background. But for now, it looks brighter. But yes, to address that, sort of the thing I have in mind as I'm watching this season of Mandalorian, and he's going to be going back to Mandalore and bathing in the waters, going through all of these like hoops to satisfy the requirements for getting back into the covert. I'm just thinking about Ahsoka and the trial, and how at the end of it, after like, oh yeah, you can come back now, she's like, no thanks. I could see Din Djarin going through all the trouble and then realizing this is nothing spiritual. The thing I just did is not spiritual. Maybe it was really stupid. Like maybe there are creatures that live in these waters that are very dangerous, and he's going to realize it wasn't worth it in the end. Right? So true. I could see him doing all the requirements and either him deciding to walk away anyway or them rejecting him anyway.
Yes. Yeah. I could see that too. And he and Bo may be coming to the same conclusion that the old ways are maybe not the best ways. And so maybe Mandalore will be rebuilt in a better, more, I don't know, current way or something, maybe something more acceptable to the current times. And you hold on to these old traditions for too long. And I mean, come on, they get a little outdated. They get a little restrictive. I mean, hygienically, you're going to keep that mask on for forever. I mean, obviously they're going to maybe take it off to shower, but come on, guys, let's clean it up a little bit. I just think that, when I think about the Mandalorians, I thought that Bo-Katan's group was the more realistic ones because they take their masks off and everything like that. But then, they still like, well, unless, you hold the dark saber, you're not my leader. Okay, well, you could have a terrible person having that. I mean, Moff Gideon, if he kept the dark saber, you guys are just going to blindly follow him? That's ridiculous.
They
So
follow Darth Maul.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And it was ridiculous. So like maybe take some of the good stuff and realize what's good and what's just old and tired.
Yeah, I like that. I think nothing that's been done in the other 2 seasons and in the Book of Boba Fett is just done for filler. I don't believe in that.
Right.
There's a
right.
reason for it. And what you guys are saying makes me go back to the conversation between Ahsoka and Din in the Book of Boba Fett, where he's like, well, I thought, you weren't going to train him. And she goes, well, Master Luke is. And he's like, well, I didn't think you like agreed with that. And, he's questioning her, and, Luke is building a school. It will be a great school. These might be all things that, like you said, once Din realizes what's really happening here, he might take those things that he learned from her and from Luke and bring that into the Mandalorian. Whereas we need to redo this, we need to start, maybe it's not me, it needs to go to somebody else, that kind of thing, So I really think Din being with Grogu, it's meant to be for right now. I think Bo-Katan, like you said, or like Eric's saying, that she's kind of tired of the whole Mandalorian race. She sounds it, I think they need to start over. And Ahsoka has known that for a long time when it came to the Jedi. That's why she walked away. So I could see this all happening with this as well. Like you were saying, Mark, take bits and pieces that really work and keep those, but, start over again, kind of like we get Rey at the end of The Rise of Skywalker, A New Home, meaning not Tatooine, but just the Jedi is starting over. It's going to get a clean slate. I think Mandalorians need a clean slate as well, because Bo-Katan really hearkened in on the fact that all these factions are what ruined everything. Because too many people wanted to have a piece of the pie. Yeah. And they were saying that their way is the right way and this way is wrong. So we will see. I really think eventually Bo and Din are going to work well together. That would be an interesting dynamic. And that reminds me, there was a moment in season 2 of The Mandalorian with Ahsoka and Din. And I believe it was Ahsoka that said, a Mandalorian and a Jedi, they'll never see it coming. Yep. And I think that was just to let us know that this is where they're going. Mm-hmm. Din with Grogu. But we shall see.
Well, we shall see. And according to Jon Favreau, there never was a plan to not have Grogu as part of it. And okay, so I know there was a lot online about that. So we've already talked about it. I've had my rant time about it, but time clearly passed, and I'm not hung up on that. But you can tell that they've built some traditions, Din and Grogu, with just even flying.
Yes.
Because as Garrett pointed out in the chat, that when the space battle is about to happen, Grogu's just like, yeah, I'll get in your bandolier. Let's do this. Like, he's seen it all. He's blasé now. He's world weary. And then, but then talking about like the traditions that are kind of toxic, occasionally I'll see variations on this post, but it usually goes viral. Like there's a guy that does the deep thinker videos, and I think this is one of them, but traditions are just peer pressure from dead people. It's something that you hear a lot from people online. And okay, so there are some traditions that are worth observing just because they're good or interesting. But just think about how many toxic things we carry from generation to generation just because that's the way that Grandpappy did it, Yeah. And I think that that's the sort of growing pains that the Jedi are having to go through. And, we still see the consequences of that 20 some years from where we are in this show in the sequel trilogy. But then also the Mandalorians themselves have been fractured as a culture for millennia. Right. And, I think that's all got to come to a head as well. So we acknowledged Garrett there. And yeah, I did love that scene. But yeah, I think that they need to grow beyond the mistakes.
They need to Grogu beyond.
Yeah, Grogu beyond the mistakes. Beyond. We are what they grow beyond.
Grogu beyond. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, and that makes sense because we've talked about this, Obviously, Luke knew there was things that needed to be changed. Ahsoka knew it way earlier than Luke ever did. Anakin just was too late with all of it. Wasn't until Luke to really spark that light. But, obviously both intersect the Mandalorian ways and the Jedi ways, because how many years ago was it where we had only one Mandalorian that was a Jedi? So they do kind of intersect. And I think that's what we're going to get, is how that came to be, and, how it's going to become new now. Because let's be honest. I mean, Mark, you've said it a couple times to me. I don't know if we said it on the episodes before, but you have said it to me, where you really do think that we're going to see Grogu in the armor, but yet with the Darksaber.
Yeah, because the only way I can see it ending at this point is that Grogu unites the Jedi and the Mandalorians under the Darksaber, and the Mandalorian in question is not Din Djarin, but Grogu. Ultimately, that's my prediction for it. And as we've seen in just this episode, some things I noted. Grogu is definitely more mobile, and he definitely has more manual dexterity than he did before.
Thanks,
so like
Luke.
we're seeing him grow. But
I love it.
Well, just like him playing with the chair, getting the one space Reese's Pieces. It's like
the
they
ET
took that
moment.
Yeah. So just that, we can tell that he's already growing a lot, because he wasn't really even mobile before.
No.
And so as he grows and gets more skill, and maybe I'm wrong about Din Djarin deciding to leave. Maybe Grogu decides to join, but then his actions sort of lead to the reuniting of the Mandalorians. So I don't know. That's my ultimate prediction.
Yeah, and I think getting rid of that tradition of you have to defeat somebody in battle to get the Darksaber. I think that's one that really needs to go. Yeah, and Bo-Katan, she may have been the, I don't know about the rightful leader, but she probably would have been a fine leader, but she couldn't get past it. She didn't defeat Din in a battle. So I think maybe, being able to hand the Darksaber off to Grogu, if he does become the leader of them or whatever. I don't think it's going to be Din Djarin, and I don't think it's going to be Bo-Katan either. I don't know. I like Mark's idea, but I really hope they don't put you have to wear a helmet all the time caveat on Grogu, because, first of all, getting the ears into the helmet's going to be tough. But, it just, if you're going to be a leader and you have to deal with people, you got to be able to kind of look them in the eye and read their facial expressions and things like that. And I hope we get that. And we've seen what Yoda could do leading the Jedi for so long. And, it would make sense that Grogu leads the Mandalorians, or has some effect on the Mandalorians. Yeah. And just like Yoda did with the Jedi.
Yeah. And he could live almost 9 human lifetimes, if you think about it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a long time to be a leader. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it would be wonderful to see them have a Jedi as a Mandalorian again. I mean, they've only had that happen once in their whole history, as far as we're aware. So we shall see. I mean, we'll see what happens, but I do think Bo-Katan's going to have a lot more to do, and she's going to have a lot more screen time, I think, this season. And I agree. There's been a lot of interviews with her and things, so I really think we're going to see her come into action here, and I think she's going to have a big help in how this is all going to play out. Though I am going to say this, I don't know how long this is going to be until we get to see how this ends, because the way, Jon Favreau is talking, that he doesn't have any set, like, definitive ending as of right now. So
yeah, they've worked on season 4, it sounds like, and so who knows? Yeah.
And speak about wearing that helmet all the time. I did see a very fun interview with Pedro saying it doesn't bother him wearing the helmet. He likes his own burps.
Oh, that's gross. Oh no.
But it was so Pedro.
No.
So I do like
get away
that.
with that.
Yeah. It kind of made me laugh because it's
I mean, let's be honest. If I had that helmet, I'd wear that thing around all day long. So
because I would look about 30 times cooler if I had that.
Yeah, right.
I mean, right now my level of cool is 0, and that would put it at least at 100. So, yeah.
Well, I can still remember it from, I think it was Chicago's celebration, Mark, when you had posted something like, "Watch out, 10s, here come the 6s," with a picture of you and I. Was it something like that? So yeah,
Yes.
you put us
Yeah,
in a couple
yeah.
of those Mandalorian helmets though. We're 10s. Come on.
12s. at
12s.
least.
Yes,
Oh,
you
definitely.
bet.
Definitely.
And Garrett said in the chat, do we see more of the pirates besides episode 1?
I'm saying yes.
I'm saying everything that we saw in this episode, and as scattershot as it was, I said it was almost like a shotgun episode, you know,
Yeah. Yep.
bird shot everywhere. Everything's going to come into play this season. So I think they shot their bird shot now, and then each episode. So this is just a prediction. I'm not in the know here, but my prediction would be that each episode then is going to deal with one of those plot threads or more. I don't think we're going to get the scattershot approach the whole season, but I'm thinking there's going to be like an A story for each episode that covers one of those, and a B story that furthers it. Like for me, it feels like IG-11 will be like the B story that kind of he's trying to find that until he does, and then IG-11 is going to be part of the crew. But yeah, I mean, we'll see if I'm proven right or wrong. But yeah, the pirates are definitely not going to give up easy.
Yeah.
Do you think we might get live action Hondo?
I would love it.
I would love it too. That's why I'm saying it. I hate to be that person, but it's like, that'd be so cool. I mean, if we could get King Kale, why can't we get Hondo?
I mean, could you imagine
I could.
Hondo Anaka coming in and saying, I am taking this ship and I am the king pirate.
Mhm.
And then
Just
he spins
imagine
the
when he
spinning
meets
chair.
Grogu. He's going to see credit signs with that, you know?
I've seen green ears like this before.
So there's a lot. I mean, I really don't think that's going to be the only time we see Purgles too. I mean, why show them to us?
That I got like emotional and cheered at that. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah,
And
that was cool.
they're just shadows of them, which I think was the smartest move. And only Grogu saw it. And I think that's even better because they are force sensitive. Obviously, they do communicate within the light. So it's interesting because it makes you wonder if Grogu and them had any sort of like, hey, hi, how you doing? You know, kind of moment, like through the force, you know?
Well, like Grogu had with the Rancor.
Yes.
Book of Boba Fett, which if you haven't watched it, why? But go ahead, watch it. But I was going to say, like, so the last couple seasons of Mandalorian and, you know, we had the Book of Boba Fett, like really drove home the importance of Attack of the Clones to the overall lore. Yeah. Rebels fans, we are about to eat. Like, we're going to feast.
Yes.
Rebels fans. Here we go.
Yes, I know. Excited. And that convoy, I know it was only one, but she was beautiful. Did you see her? The green, the blue. Oh, she was just gorgeous. I mean, granted, she was perched on IG. I don't know if she left anything behind. Sorry, IG. But you know, when you gotta go, you gotta go.
Whoa.
I think it means something. It definitely means something that there was a convoy there.
Yeah. Yep. Nothing's done by accident or just for fun, usually.
Yeah.
Usually.
There's meaning there. So, but I was excited. And yeah, I mean, again, I think both episodes were really good. I really liked the Bad Batch episode, though. Like, I really just, again, though, packed in a lot of things in very few minutes, just like this did too. But this was a setup when it comes to Mandalorian. So, you know, things are only going to get better from here. So, see what happens. All right. Anyone want to add anything else? I know you guys are strapped for time, so.
Yeah, I was really glad to talk to both of you about this.
Yeah, it's fun. Good stuff.
It's exciting again. I mean, it's been a little while since we were able to just talk about a show that's on like weekly that literally everybody's going to watch. Like, because as much as I love Bad Batch, don't get me wrong, it's excellent. Not as many people watch animation as they do live action. So,
but they should.
They should. They really should. This season of the Bad Batch.
And with the Mandalorian. Sorry, I was going to say with the Mandalorian, there's people that aren't Star Wars fans necessarily that watch that. Most of the people watching the Bad Batch are diehard Star Wars fans. So Mandalorian really crosses boundaries.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I think that we have done, we're over an hour now. So I think it's time to wrap it up. So Ryder, why don't you go first? Tell them where they can find you and in our podcast as well, I guess.
Yeah, you bet. So you can find our non-award-winning podcast on everywhere you listen to podcasts. It's at Idiots Array Pod on Twitter. You can email at Idiots Array Podcast on at gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram, and that is Idiots Array Podcast. And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RyderWaldronDDS. And if you want to learn about dentistry and Star Wars and how they really, really strongly cross over, you can listen to the Star Wars School of Dentistry on everywhere you find a podcast. And you can follow that on Twitter at Star Wars Dentist and on Instagram at Star Wars School of Dentistry. And our guest this week is C-3PO. So, you know, he's going to be the guest on the show. It's going to be great. It was great. It's fun. Yeah.
He had so many fillings that he became gold.
He did. He is just a dentist dream because you can just take his head off and work on him and he doesn't slobber or anything.
So he's a gold crown. Yes.
It's exactly what we talked about. Gold crowns, possibly melting him down to make gold crowns out of him.
Yeah, I'm sure he's not very happy about that, but
he never
I'll
is.
have to tune in and
I figured
out.
George Lucas beat him up a lot, so let's just carry that tradition on. So yeah, anyway, hopefully you guys can check it out.
Oh my gosh.
And Becca?
Well, yeah, so if you want to say hi to us or let us know what you guys think, always email us at ttspodfeedback@gmail.com. You can interact with us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Make sure you tag Mark if you want him to respond. You can listen to us wherever you catch pods because we should be everywhere. Yeah, and also please follow, subscribe to our Pitiful Little Band podcast network. We're all on there, as you can see. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and of course YouTube. So please subscribe and follow. If you want to say hi to me, best place is on Twitter or Instagram right now at YouAreAngelB. And what about you, Mark? Tell us about you.
I am Mark Suter. I'm a co-host on these podcasts. You may have heard me in such films as. So anyway, I am at Mark E. Suter on Twitter and Instagram. I do see posts for Tarkin's Top Shelf on Instagram. So if you respond there, I see those. I also have a book out called Vulcan's Blade that you can check out. It's on Amazon. And a website, marksuterauthor.com, where you can read my blog that needs to be updated and sign up for my newsletter that will go out once I have enough people signed up.
And I just signed up for the newsletter. I thought I was already signed up, but I finally signed up. Maybe I signed up twice.
All right,
Maybe I signed up twice.
Now the pressure's on. I'll go do that as soon as we hang up here on our
I thought I had, and then I hadn't. And so I felt like a loser. So Becca, now you're the only loser on here, I guess. I don't know.
Wow!
Well, there's one loser that's not here.
Oh my god!
Well, we missed Alan. We did miss Alan.
We did.
So on behalf of Tarkin's Top Shelf and Idiot's Array, tell that to Reading Club, and may the force be with you.
May the force be with you.